With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
It's Irish. It is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No,
Okay.
We Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Direct from the King Spring Studios in beautiful Smyrna, Georgia. This is a bunch of malarkey. Now, here's your host, the incredible Charlie McMahon.
Welcome to another episode of A Bunch of Malarkey. Thank you, Scott Shannon, for that wonderful introduction. And thank all of you for tuning in to yet another episode of A Bunch of Malarkey as we close out the month of August, if you can believe that. And we set our sights on Labor Day, the baseball season winding down, the pennant races taking shape, football starting up, college, high school, pro. And we're just a week away from pumpkin spice, an invasion of pumpkin spice, I should say. So that's what's going on as we wind down the month of August. And we have a special guest today making her third appearance, I believe, on the show. And her first one since, I believe, the month of April. Amanda is back. Amanda, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's always good to see you. Now, Amanda, people really took a liking to last week's topic. I never had that many comments and emails about the unwritten social rules. That really hit home for a lot of people about all the mutants out there breaking unwritten social rules.
Oh, it hit home for me, for sure.
I mean, and then, after I do the show, a couple of days go by, Johnny B and his wife, they have these seats at SunTrust Park in this Infinity Club, which is exclusive club in the park for season ticket holders. It's mostly corporate seats, and Johnny B's wife, Renee, her family's company has the seats there. So she's gracious enough to extend the seats to my wife and I, and we go with them and have a great time. So we're in this Infinity Club, right? And we noticed this giant bin of snacks. The Infinity Club itself is like a lounge. It's air-conditioned, climate-controlled, all little restaurants and private bathrooms. It's really a great place. But as you leave the glass doors to go out to your seats, there's this, bin. And we noticed there was, giant bags of peanuts in there and Cracker Jacks and popcorn. And people were just taking them. So I said to Johnny B, I'm like, those must be free, complimentary for, being that you guys pay so much for the tickets. So Johnny B went up to the usher and said, are these free? And the usher said, yeah, help yourself. So we all took Cracker Jacks back to our seat. I look across the aisle. Now, we talk about unwritten social rules and mutants. And there was this oversized woman with her oversized husband sitting there. They already ate their snacks, their free snacks, and they had 6 bags of shit to take home. She was stuffing in a purse.
She was stuffing free snacks.
Cracker Jacks, popcorn, peanuts. Now, that kind of they're nice enough. I granted, people pay a lot for the tickets, but SunTrust is nice enough to give out these snacks, and then this woman's hoarding them to take home. Why can't you just have a couple of bags there and go on with your life?
Go on.
Why do you have to be a sample abuser?
Because it's free, and people abuse free stuff.
I just don't get it.
It happens even in the workplace. You have something free. It could be an ink pen, and somebody will take 15 fucking ink pens.
As I always say, if you took a shit on a break room table, people would ask, where are the crackers? Because you can put anything on a break room table.
And people will eat it. I see it every day.
So that was my night out at SunTrust Park, a fun night. But then I look across and I was saying to Johnny B, should I call this woman out? Should I take a picture I just let it go, though, because you really can't. You got to be nervous. Nobody's not carrying a gun in SunTrust Park, but you got to be nervous. People will say you're racist, you're this, you're that. So you kind of have to be careful what you say. But I was so tempted to just go across and say, if you wanted to eat 5 bags here, fine. But bringing them home, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And I don't ever... if I were to have that in my purse, I wouldn't eat it later. I'm going to eat it there. I don't want it later.
And how much does popcorn cost, really?
Exactly.
You buy a bag of kernels, you buy a little popcorn thing, and you have a whole bowl of popcorn for pennies on the dollar. You got to steal the popcorn.
And Cracker Jacks aren't that expensive.
No.
Do they still put the prize in the box?
Yeah, but it's like a shit sticker or something. It's not like a real toy anymore.
That sucks.
I remember a day where I don't remember, but my grandparents used to tell me there used to be like medal prizes in there, like real like silver
Really?
and shit. Yeah.
Well, that's fancy.
All I remember is like little cheap pinball things and stuff
Or
like that.
what do you like the actual like bouncy ball?
Yeah, stuff like that. So we're in this hot streak, this heat and humidity here in Atlanta. Now, this is our 19th straight day of 90-plus degree temperatures, and we have 61 days total this year above 90 degrees. The average is 37 days, so we've been dying here in the heat.
It's awful.
And with the heat comes, you want to change your clothes a lot. You take extra showers. You know, I know myself, like, we try to do laundry several times a week to keep up. And my wife made me throw out we're going to talk about underwear in a second, made me throw out all old underwear. So I have about 10, 12 pairs of really nice underwear. But I notice sometimes because I'm changing them so much that like by midweek I'm almost out of underwear and I'll have to throw a load of wash in. But I read a story this week, and I know we talked off the air that you read it too, that there was a survey that went around that says nearly half of Americans have worn the same pair of underwear for 2 or more days, according to a survey by apparel maker Tommy John, who make the underwear.
Right.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? They're mutants is what they are.
I can't imagine, unless you are bedridden, like with the flu, and you just can't pick your head up off the pillow, or you are lost at sea. Or even then, you can dip them in the salt water and wash them. But if you're lost in, like, the jungle or something, or get lost, or like you mentioned, if you're deployed somewhere in the military and you can't change your underwear if you're on, like, a mission.
You're camping, maybe.
Well, even if you camp and you bring underwear.
Bring underwear.
Or wash them in the river or something.
Something.
So they surveyed 1,000 people. It was like an informal type poll. 45% admitted that they had worn the same pair of undies for 2 or more days, with 13% saying they had worn the same pair for a week or more.
Ugh, so
Could you
gross.
imagine the smell when they peeled those off?
That's so disgusting.
I mean, folks. Well, then you talk about people, don't even get into the series about how often people change their bed sheets.
Oh,
Weeks, months. I used to have a roommate that used to like hook up with girls on all these dating sites, and he would bring one girl right after the other on the sheets. I go, dude, at least change. No, I would say at least change the sheets for the next girl.
Oh, gross! So gross.
So it says the company wasn't surprised. The finding didn't surprise the company, and it said men were 2.5 times as likely as women to wear unwashed undies for a week or more. So the men are the bigger culprits here. Well, I would think with women you're more apt to get an infection or something more than a man if you don't do that. But still, it's still disgusting. I'm not making excuses for you guys out there who don't change your underwear. What else does it say? Though perhaps not aesthetically pleasing, going a day or two with the same pair is not a health deal breaker, says a NYU microbiology and pathology professor. So it's not going to really do you any harm. It says underwear sits next to the skin containing E. coli. Despite our best efforts, and even when we wash it, it never kills all that E. coli bacteria anyway. There is always going to be something on the underwear. We are bathed in a society in feces, this microbiologist said. Could you imagine we're bathed in feces?
Bathed in feces. That really puts a new meaning to it's a shit show out there.
Right. So, folks, if that didn't make you throw up in your mouth, I got a story that will. 6 people, ranging in the age from 62 to 85, are facing sex charges after being arrested in a conservation area in Connecticut. Police say the 6 people, 5 men and an 85-year-old woman, were involved in lewd and sexual activity in the Grace Richardson Conservation Area in Fairfield, Connecticut, earlier this month.
That's a nice part of Connecticut.
Yeah, well, Fairfield is not bad at all. Yeah,
that's a pretty fancy part of Connecticut.
Police say that they had put up surveillance cameras in the area because people were publicizing it on the internet as an area for people to go meet and have sex. The 5 that were arrested, the 6 that were arrested, faced charges ranging from breach of peace to public indecency. They were released on promises to appear in court. So, I mean, what the hell's going on?
Those elderly people are probably having more fun than a lot of younger people.
But 5 men and an 85-year-old woman, that was a little weird to me.
I just have so many questions.
I don't even want to picture that in my mind.
I don't want to picture it.
Picture your grandmother's, even somebody older than your grandmother, doing that with 5 guys.
No.
5 guys. I just think of the burger place. I don't know. So if that doesn't springboard us into our favorite segment, folks, I don't know what the hell will.
Mutant of the Week.
So we had a pretty decisive win again last week. We haven't had a close race in about 6 weeks now. We have a winner, and that is the Denny's Dashing Dater, who beat the Besotted Barbecuer 70% to 30%. In case you don't remember, the Denny's Dashing Dater was the guy who ditched his date after he was pulled over, or attempted to be pulled over by police, and went on a police chase and then ditched himself into the woods and left his date behind. He beat the Besotted Barbecuer, the guy who went into Walmart drunk and stuffed brisket and propane tanks in his underwear and then kicked a police officer. So it was 70 to 30. So wearing the crown this week is our Denny's Dashing Dater. So let's move on to this week's nominees. Amanda's got the first one for you.
All right. So the first mutant nominee is from Punta Gorda, Florida. Gotta love these Florida stories. So officials say a Florida woman, not a Florida man, a Florida woman. A Florida woman who pulled a small alligator from her yoga pants during a traffic stop and illegally possessed numerous other wild animals has been sentenced to probation after pleading guilty to 4 charges. Florida prosecutors say Charlotte County Sheriff's deputies stopped a pickup truck in May after it ran a stop sign. The driver, 22-year-old Michael Clemens, told the deputy that he and his 25-year-old passenger, Ariel Machin-Liguire, were collecting frogs and snakes under an overpass. He gave the deputy permission to search the bags in the truck. When the deputy found 41 3-striped turtles in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle backpack.
Can't make this up.
He asked if they had anything else, and she pulled a 1-foot gator from her pants. Officials say the Clemens case is pending. Let's call her the Yo Gator Yahoo.
The Yo Gator. The combination of yoga and alligator. I like that. The Yo Gator Yahoo.
My question is, yoga pants, those aren't loose.
No. How did she not suffocate the gator?
Or how did it not bite her? Or I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't know.
That's bizarre.
And according to the alligator, she had not changed her underwear in 2 days. No, later report.
50%.
All right, so we got the Yo Gator Yahoo out of Florida. And our second one comes out of the Garden State of New Jersey. A failed booty call turned into a red alert when a New Jersey woman showed up at the home of the man who allegedly texted her for sex at 4 a.m. on August 4th, then fell asleep before she arrived. Intent on having a hot date anyway, Tahia Russell, 29, went to a Woodbury, New Jersey gas station, bought some lighter fluid and a lighter, and started the identified caller's home afire with him inside. Upon arriving at the victim's home, Russell called the man 8 times, but he didn't answer. She allegedly texted the man, "I see you want to die, and you wasted my money to come out here," before the blaze was extinguished.
Wow.
The victim escaped through a window, but suffered from burns and smoke inhalation. Wearing only a T-shirt and covered in soot, he ran to a nearby police station around 4:30 a.m. to get help. Police said the home and its contents were completely destroyed, though firefighters saved the man's dog. Russell was reportedly arrested Tuesday on charges including arson and attempted murder. She is being held without bail. So let's call her the promiscuous pyromaniac out of New Jersey.
She really stepped into psycho on that one.
She really wanted that booty call.
Wanted that booty call.
Oh, my God. You can't, seriously. So the guy stands you up or falls asleep. Move on with your life. You got to light the guy's house on. She must have been really...
She stepped into psycho.
Yeah.
Jeez.
All right, so we mentioned earlier in the show that, we're winding down August and we're heading into Labor Day weekend. Just a reminder, next week, September 2nd, which is Labor Day Monday, we will not have a show. We are taking a much-needed break here at A Bunch of Malarkey, so you'll have a week to catch up on some old episodes. But Labor Day is coming. Now, people get Labor Day mixed up with all kinds of things. They say they think it's a military thing. They mix it up with Memorial Day. They thank the troops on Labor Day. I mean, right? It's fucked up. People don't even know what Labor Day is.
People have no clue.
So Amanda and I are here today to, before we get into the topic, which is the workforce, we are going to explain what Labor Day is. So Amanda, let them enlighten our audience. I think a lot of our audience might know, but,
Well, because the audience isn't full of mutants.
Yeah, well, we might have a few, but just give everybody a refresher course on what Labor Day is.
All right. So Labor Day, which is the first Monday in September, is a creation of the labor movement and is dedicated to the social and economic achievements of American workers. It constitutes a yearly national tribute to the contributions workers have made to the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our country. The first governmental recognition came through municipal ordinances passed in 1885 and 1886. From these, a movement developed to secure state legislation. The first state bill was introduced into the New York legislature, but was the first to become law was passed by Oregon on February 21st, 1887. During 1887, 4 more states, Colorado, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, created the Labor Day holiday by legislative enactment. By the end of the decade, Connecticut, Nebraska, and Pennsylvania had followed suit. By 1894, 23 more states had adopted the holiday, and on June 28, 1894, Congress passed an act making the first Monday in September of each year a legal holiday in the District of Columbia and the Territories. More than a century after the first Labor Day observance, there is still some doubt as to who first proposed the holiday for workers.
You're right, because some records show that Peter J. McGuire, General Secretary of the Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners and a co-founder of the American Federation of Labor, was the first in suggesting a day to honor those who from rude nature have delved and carved all the grandeur we behold. But Peter McGuire's place in Labor Day history has not gone unchallenged. Many believe that Matthew McGuire, a machinist, not Peter McGuire, founded the holiday. Recent research seems to support the contention that Matthew McGuire, later the Secretary of Local 344 of the International Association of Machinists, based out of Paterson, New Jersey, proposed the holiday in 1882 while serving as Secretary of the Central Labor Union of New York. What is clear is that the Central Labor Union adopted a Labor Day proposal and appointed a committee to plan a demonstration and picnic. So this labor movement, folks, you got to remember, you get a 40-hour work week and vacation time and safe working conditions and all the things you enjoy. I know many of you probably have problems at work, which we're going to get into, but people were dying in factories. People were working 90 hours a week without overtime. There was no it was just run amok. These companies just ran sweatshops. People were dying in fires. So we've come a long way. I think we've slid back in a lot of ways in labor over the past, I would say, since the 80s. But we have to remember, it's not a military holiday, but these people did struggle. They protested. They were beaten in the streets. A lot of them died. And we're here to talk about the American workforce today. And Amanda's here because she works in human resources and deals with a lot of this. And I have a unique perspective as a person who worked in retail, both in a worker and management role. I've worked in the corporate sector as manager and an employee. I've run my own business, so I have a unique perspective as well. So we're going to get into today. I feel like we're in the decline of the American worker. I think the American worker is still the best in the world, but I think we are not treating the workers with the respect that we used to treat them. And we're going to go over a lot of the reasons, a lot of the complaints. And we'll talk about the most recognized complaints employees have about their employers, about their managers, about the conditions at work. And who better to have here to discuss that than Amanda? So I guess we'll start with most common gripes against a company as a whole, not specifically a manager. Let's start, I guess, with you get a lot of complaints about unfair pay not based on merit. The raises are few and far between. What do you experience along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I get not necessarily pay based on merit. Sometimes, I mean, it depends on the time of year, obviously,
Right.
but more along the lines of are we competitive with everyone else
In that industry?
Yeah, because in the industry that I'm in, it is a specific industry, but we also have to, it's a business as well, so you have to compete with every other
Sure.
industry that has those positions. So are we marketable? Are we fair? And also you have to deal with internal equity issues too. If you and I have the same position and the same amount of experience, are we being paid
Right.
fairly?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Now, what is startling here, CEO pay currently is 271 times the average 58,000 American worker's salary. 271 times that. Since 1978, this is adjusted for inflation, workers' pay has gone up 11.2%, while CEO pay has gone up 937%.
Ridiculous.
Something's out of whack there, folks.
Something's out of whack.
And what about benefits? Are there a lot of complaints about the cost of benefits?
Yeah, everywhere I've worked, it's benefits, and we do engagement surveys, and on those it talks about pay and benefits, and there's things that you can control and things you can't control, and across the board it's always that people hate the benefits, but no one can ever really say why they suck.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
but it doesn't matter where I've ever worked, everybody hates the benefits.
Now, from your position, over the years, now this is something I couldn't wrap my head around. Even as a 10-year-old, I started to question it. I always wondered why you go for auto insurance, you go call up different auto insurance brokers and agents, and you get a quote, and you pick the one you want based on what you need. Life insurance. I've always wondered why health insurance, probably the most important insurance you'll carry, is tied to a job. I never understood that. Why isn't it just like where we can go out independently and just buy our health insurance? I mean, you can, but it costs you an arm and a leg if you don't go through a company. But I always wondered why it was tied to jobs, because people aren't spending 35 years at a job anymore. People are jumping around every 2 to 3 years, and then they have a lapse in their insurance and the time it takes. It's usually 90 days. Before you get medical insurance and a new job? No, it's not?
No, it's
30 days?
First of the month after 30 days.
Okay, so say you're on the back end of that. You could go 30 days without insurance if you don't pick up the COBRA from your previous employer, and something happens in that time.
Right. Or if certain employers only have certain start dates, and you could go...
Enrollment times.
Yeah.
Right.
And... depending on whatever your start date is at that employer, you could go, and your end date at the other employer, you could go 2 months.
See, I don't understand that. Anything could happen in 2 months. You could have a car accident. You could break a leg. You could get hit by something. I just never understood, even as a kid that didn't know anything about it, I always wondered why it was tied to a job. And like I said, especially nowadays when people are working for themselves or they're jumping around. People aren't, I'm sure your dad worked at the same company for his whole life.
Same company.
My dad, too.
Yep.
It's not like that anymore.
Nope, not at all.
And now, to give benefits, to give you an idea of health insurance, folks, our wages, basically, since 78, I mentioned, are basically flat. Our deductibles since 2005 are up 210% as a country and 80% on the premium since 2005. So these costs continue to grow and our pays continue to stay the same. So this is why people are frustrated.
Right. But then on the flip side of that, too, I know the company I work for spends roughly about $1 billion of their money just covering their portion of benefits for the employees. But at the same time, people are living longer. They're having more chronic conditions.
Right.
Some people are larger, so
Yes.
companies are doing everything they can to try and drive down that cost of the premium and the cost of prescription drugs due to things that people can control, weight, sometimes blood
Preventative
pressure,
type stuff.
those preventative things. So they're offering, certain companies offer like farmers markets or free gym memberships or health coaching. So some companies are trying because it's affecting their
Sure.
bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're waking up and trying to offer better benefits
Right.
because it's affecting their bottom line.
Now, what about job security? Do you get a lot of complaints that people feel that their job is insecure, that they could just be let go at any time, or, any way the wind blows,
No, because I mean, it's where I work, it's pretty structured. As far as you couldn't just walk in and be like, "Hey, Sam, you're fired." I mean,
even though we're in a right to work state, you don't have to have a reason. You can't just toss somebody out.
we prefer to
Document.
Okay,
Right.
Like if you're a manager and you say, "Hey, I want to terminate Sam," I'm going to come back and say, "Okay, then what's the reason? What have you done to warn them? Correct
their
this behavior,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is," and then you have to okay a termination
Right.
with us.
I think in the smaller companies, I think we spoke about it off the air the other day. I think, like in a large corporation where there's a human resources department, there's channels to go through. Mm-hmm. Or if you're in a union shop, which I fully support unions, it's a shame that they don't have a seat at the table anymore. Throughout many decades in this country, labor had a voice at the table, and they don't anymore. But I worked for a lot of small companies as well as large companies where you dealt straight with the owner, direct with the owner. There was maybe 50 people employed by the company. There was no human resources department. If something was unfair and the owners were causing that unfairness, you had nobody to go to.
That's a shame.
And they could fire you at the drop of a hat. They didn't need to write you up or use any type of, corrective behavior or any type. One day they got up and didn't like you anymore, that was it.
Mm-hmm. I actually know somebody recently that happened to. They worked at a company for quite some time, and this company didn't have an HR department. One day they just walked in and, after like 12, 15 years, and was like, "We have no more work for you, bye."
Right.
No severance, no kiss my ass, no anything.
Now, you worked HR for several different companies and several different industries. Now, is HR typically just another arm of the company where you're more likely to take the side of the company and looking out for their best interest, or are you genuinely concerned about the workers' needs and complaints and things of that nature?
So for me, I can speak for me personally. I actually care.
Right.
I do care. It's for me, I try to do what's best for everybody. Of course, yes, in some instances, depending on the situation, you're looking out for, where policy, procedure, what have you. But for me, I try to do what's fair.
Right.
I try to find that common ground, that middle ground to, it may not be what everybody wants, but it's a consensus of what can happen. So, I mean, I think it depends on not the company. I think it depends on the HR practitioner.
Okay.
I've seen, especially within the last year or two, you have some really solid, really good, fair HR practitioners, and then you have some that aren't. And it's a shame, and it's a shame when people that I deal with, after they deal with me, they'll say, "Oh, you're actually really fair." Well, why wouldn't I be?
Right.
Or I've gotten, "Oh, you're not a robot." And well, last time I checked, I actually do breathe.
Need some oil, right?
Right. So, I think that's people's past experience. It's,
right.
like we're adult babysitters or we're the
absolutely.
police. For me and my role, I think it's evolved over the years where I've actually, I hate to use this phrase, but earned a seat at the table where I actually serve as like that business partner, that strategic partner, and providing guidance on, this is the structure you need in place to be successful.
Right.
So I try to do what's best for everyone.
I found in my career, both as a manager and an employee in companies that were that had an HR department, that unless management did something totally egregious like sexual harassment that was blatant out in the open, they generally sided with the company. Mm. That's just in my experience. Like you said, it could have been the company culture. It could have been the specific people I was dealing with. But that's what I always found. And I always felt that in places where I was in a union member, they were much more helpful than the human resources department. But, that comes with a cost and their own set of problems. So
right.
Now, what about people coming to you feeling underappreciated? Do you get that a lot? Like they don't feel like they're, for what they do, if they go the extra mile or the extra effort they put in, that nobody's really noticing that.
Yeah, so I actually have a situation that I've been working on for a while, and
An underappreciated case?
We'll call it that,
Okay.
where there is an individual that I've been dealing with who feels that they deserve a promotion.
Okay.
And okay, well, let's talk about it. And they say, well, the job I'm doing is not the job that I'm in. Okay, well, how about this? Why don't you write out all of your job duties and the percent of time that you feel you're doing those duties, and let's talk about it.
Okay.
They straight up told me, I deserve a promotion because I work hard. And I said, okay, so not because the business needs it or,
Right.
you know, whatever. It's, no, I deserve a promotion because I work hard. So, okay, well, let's go off of that logic. And, you know, if you're saying it's the hours you work and the work product and
Right.
because you work hard, if that's your logic, then I should be the CEO or
Right.
the chief HR officer. I should, you know, if that's your
Have
logic.
this person been in the company a long time?
Probably about as long as I've been, couple years.
Okay.
Yeah, but their logic is just, you know, I
They
work
want
hard.
rewarded for doing what they're supposed to do. They want to be rewarded for showing up and, you know, working hard. And you know, there are people that slack off and there are people that work harder than others, but they're not doing anything that exceeds what their job description says to show that they are taking initiative to get to the next level.
Not at all.
Okay.
And also couple that with a gripe about past years, several past years, performance evaluations.
Right.
You know, well, they're just saying this because that's just what they think.
Right.
But it's been documented performance issues, and so it's a little bizarre. But yeah.
Do you get a lot of work-life balance issues where people just can't go home and live their lives? They have to answer emails and phones and texts and all that. Is that a big issue?
No and yes. I can say in my 16 years in HR, this particular company I'm at, actually, I have the best work-life balance that I've ever had.
Okay.
I don't feel obligated. There are some people that will email at ridiculous hours, and you're like, what are you doing?
Right, and expect an answer.
Right. But I think for the most part, the only work-life balance issues we've had, because the company I work for has grown really large in a really short period of time, and so with that, there have been a couple of instances where employees have had to work, you know, they didn't get a July 4th holiday or didn't get whatever, you know, holiday it may have been, but we've tried to make that up to them in other ways. Yeah. So it's, so no and yes, that one's kind of, you know.
What about people who come in? Do a lot of people say, not necessarily I deserve or I'm underappreciated, I deserve a promotion, but there is just no opportunity for advancement for myself?
So ironically enough, we're actually going through recent engagement survey results, and so some of those will be I'm not provided promotional opportunities or development opportunities. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I always found this confusing, especially in a bigger company. You basically are told when you're hired how much time you get off for vacation, for sick time, for personal days. But you're only told that like once, and then you kind of don't get refreshed on that. And I think that's a big complaint, too. People don't know how much time they're entitled to when someone dies in their immediate family, or when they have sick kids at home, or when they're moving. It's very confusing to people. Is that a big issue? Generally, where people are confused as to what they're entitled to or what they signed up for, or how they're not sure how much time they get.
We actually, I think we do a pretty good job at communicating that and having that information available to people.
They can go online and stuff.
Yeah,
yes, that's
on
good.
Our intranet.
Oh, perfect.
And so that's at their fingertips. And we actually have an entire group within HR that's available over the phone. You know, and they're actually local. They're not in like, you know, Kalamazoo or India or somewhere. They actually sit not far from me, and they're there to answer those basic questions. So I think people know that. And also, we have on your paycheck stub, it'll list how much time off you have and how much you've accrued and how much you've used.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, your technology is catching up, I think. A lot of the smaller companies where you really didn't have that, where it was just a privately owned small company with a couple people running it, you didn't have those electronic resources, so you were kind of in the dark about that. So that used to be a big complaint. Let's switch gears and talk about gripes against management, specific managers, rather than the company as a whole. What would you say is the biggest gripe you get when people come into HR against a manager? Would it be like, the lack of communication or the favoritism? What jumps off right away for you?
Probably both of those, lack of communication and perceived favoritism.
Okay.
Yeah, but lack of communication, I think, probably surpasses favoritism just by a little bit.
Right, and I guess part of that with the lack of communication is not setting clear expectations and, like you mentioned, development,
right?
Things of that nature. And I always, I've been on both sides of it as a manager and employee, and I would get very frustrated as an employee because you would never get a lot of feedback from managers unless something went totally wrong. You would get put through the ringer. But you never got feedback on you don't expect, you're not a baby where you're going to get feedback every single day. But even once a month or something, you never got feedback as to how everything was going. No news was good news. If you didn't hear anything, you assumed everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, out of left field, they would say something. So I always found that as a problem. Not enough feedback from managers. And as a manager, I tried to be different because I knew, being on the other end, how frustrating it was. Do you find that a big issue with managers?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, because I not only counsel and coach employees, but that also includes managers too. So I'll have a conversation with a manager where I will say, why are you so afraid to talk to your employee? Just talk to them. Just have a conversation.
Right.
It's not, you're not in a, higher... it's not a power struggle.
Right.
It's just have a conversation with them. And so oftentimes I have to have more crucial conversations with managers to tell them to manage their people.
Overworked, understaffed, and workload issues, that has to still be a big thing because, I mean, as companies are learning to do more with less. People quit or get fired. They don't replace them. It's been going on for decades now. This is nothing new. How much do you hear about that?
All the time. One thing that started in the manufacturing world but has spilled over to the corporate world, and I'm guilty of using this phrase and I hate it, is the whole concept of being lean and working lean. And the whole concept of lean, Six Sigma. It actually started in the auto manufacturing world and has spilled over into the corporate world. So there's actually a department that I support that works just ridiculously lean, and you can see how it affects the rest of the organization that relies on this department because they can't push things forward because they need this department to get it done.
Well, even in a retail business, I worked retail in the 80s and the first half of the 90s. We had a person I worked for a company that was similar to Target and Walmart called Caldor. We had at least one employee in every department every single night on the sales floor when people came looking for a sale item or wanted actual information about a product. We were trained to tell them what's the difference between this treadmill and that treadmill, this lawnmower and that lawnmower, this frying pan and that frying pan, no matter what department you were in. Try finding someone on the sales floor nowadays. I have a question. You have to do all the research at home yourself and then narrow it down to the one you want and then either buy it on Amazon or go to the store and say, I already know, which one I want. And that's really depressing when you go to a store with questions. A home repair store like Home Depot, Lowe's, you have a question about something. Good luck trying to find someone.
Even
and then
PetSmart.
Yeah, and then you might get two answers. Ask two people and you'll get two different answers.
Exactly.
And to me, yeah, it's working leaner, but are you losing sales by not giving them the right, by having someone there to sell them and teach the consumer about the products and stuff like that? I just felt like, and we not only that, did we have someone stationed in every department, but we were all cross-trained in the neighboring departments where if someone went out to lunch and there was nobody there, we were cross-trained in the neighboring departments where you can jump in and give a hand. Good luck today trying to find someone in the store.
Good luck.
You're bagging, you're scanning, you're checking yourself out. Pretty soon we're going to be mopping the floors.
Can't wait. It's going to be great. I hope that means I get a discount.
What about, obviously, harassment and bullying for managers is probably still a big problem, but hopefully getting better with everything in the news, with sexual harassment and harassment.
I think that comes more with fellow employees than with their managers.
Really? Okay. Because usually it's someone in a position of power trying to get something out of somebody by using that power. But it's really more so with people that are on the same level. Yeah,
I think like within teams that people just they can't get along. Why they can't get along, or somebody wants to show authority over somebody else, and they're in the same position, and it's it's just really petty stuff.
Now, I found with managers, here's something that I found was an issue with managers for a long time. Is that you take a really good employee that's been with the company for, it's just pulling a number, 10 years. They're excellent at what they do, and they're rewarded with a promotion to management.
Oh, God, it still happens.
And that still happens. And I'm not saying that person doesn't deserve a raise or a promotion, but when you talk management, you have to have a totally different skill set as a manager than you do just because you were a good employee. I mean, even in Major League Baseball or NFL football, just because you were a great player doesn't mean you're going to make a good manager or a coach, because you're dealing with all different personalities. You can't treat every employee. Yes, you have to treat them the same as far as the rules go, and you can't play favorites, but you cannot assume everybody's personality is going to be the same. You'll get more out of people by adjusting, what their strengths are, their weaknesses are, what sets them off, what makes them happy, and you have to work with that. You can't just pull anybody. Management isn't for everybody.
No, it's not. And just because you are a subject matter expert doesn't mean that you know how to lead employees.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Now, you don't have to name names. Give me an example, or give me the features or characteristics of a manager that you consider the best manager you ever had in your life at any job. It could have been your first job, whatever that was. It doesn't have to be in the industry you are now.
Oh, goodness. Characteristics of best.
Like, what did they do that stands out that you always put them up on a pedestal and say, I wish I was still working for this person? Like, what did they bring to the table that made you feel good as an employee? Or
I have two, and they were pretty similar. They were at two different jobs and two different points in my career, but they were both very similar people. They would involve me in things, not only to keep me informed, but to help develop me. I had both of them kind of just threw me in to things and threw me into situations, and not that I couldn't handle it. They were, there, but for my own development and to help me, know. So I think those were good characteristics as far as, they were great communicators, wouldn't blindside you with anything, and really kind of focused on, well, here, let's get you involved in this situation, or, and just kind of, this one particular manager just kind of threw me into the frying pan, and that really, you're learning.
Builds character.
Builds something. And
what about the worst manager you ever had? Like, what did he or she do or not do that that automatically stands out? They were bad, that you say, I would never be like that?
Oh, goodness. I have two that come to mind. This one just never communicated, period. Just never communicated. We were at two different sites. They were consistently late to every meeting and would always come in with some type of food product. So it was like a running joke among all of us of, they're going to be late, and is it going to be Wendy's today, or is it going to be, something else? So they were pretty terrible, just because you just you had nothing,
Right,
you know,
right.
And they were pretty much out for themselves versus
Sure.
the greater good of
everyone.
everyone. But also passive aggressive, really passive aggressive. That one.
That's the worst at work.
Oh, God. And it's like, you're my manager. Why are you so passive aggressive? And I have had to have the conversation with this person that I reported to where I had to say, you know, you're actually really passive aggressive and, you know, don't treat me like I'm your little sister.
Right.
I'm not your little sister. And, you know, treat me like a human being.
I always thought that a manager that displayed an even keel consistency, where you knew every day, even if they were having a bad day or in a bad mood, you always were going to be treated a certain way. You knew where you stood with this person, and you knew what their expectations were. To me, there's nothing worse than an inconsistent boss who's not on an even keel. Because I worked for a woman who owned the company. Nothing bad to say about her as far as being a businesswoman. Took a business out of her garage and made it into hundreds of millions of dollars in sales and IT sales a year. Was one of the leaders in the industry up in New York. But you were a hero one day with her. You could do no wrong. She'd parade you around the whole company saying how great you were. And 3 days later, you were in the doghouse.
I've had bosses like that.
And you never knew when she pulled up she had this big Lincoln Navigator. And when she pulled up, we would all be in fear because we didn't know which person was going to show up that day. And that is the worst feeling to have when you got to go to work every day.
Yep.
And then on the flip side, my first boss, who I talk about a lot, who passed away a few years ago, you knew always he was consistent. You could tell when he was having a bad day. He would show his emotions on his sleeve, but always was even keel with you. You knew where you stand, always encouraged people, always communicated. And I tried to model myself. Thank God I had him as my first manager, because shortly after high school, I got into management, and I tried to model myself after him. And what's great about it is that I still get instant messages and Facebook messages on my birthday here and there from employees that I had 25, 30 years ago who still say, you were the best manager we ever had. We would come out of high school and you could tell when something was wrong at home, and you would talk to us in the office and make us feel better before we started our shift. And I modeled myself after the person who did that for me. So I don't know if that's acceptable nowadays to talk to a guy or a girl if they're having girlfriend or boyfriend problems at home, or if that would be acceptable nowadays. But back then, that was the way we managed. Before they started their shift, you would ask them how school was going. You would make them feel good, like you wanted to be involved in their life, and you're almost like a second teacher or something to these people when they came to work. And that's how I was treated from my first boss, and that's what I tried to do when I got in that position. So that was always very important to me.
Oh yeah, me too. I've been in a management position where I managed people, and I approached it, as far as, this is how I want to be treated, and I'm going to treat them the way I want to be treated, and, treat them. They were obviously hired for a reason and had a skill set for a reason, and, to honor that and appreciate that and,
Right.
And respect that. And, it really it grinds my gears when somebody, talks to me like I'm 5 years old and like I have no idea what I'm doing. So when I was a manager, I approached it as I'm just going to talk to you like
Right.
I'm talking to you now. And,
That's the way to be.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the petty issues that people come in and complain about. How often do you get, like, the office is too noisy, or I bet you get a lot of it's too cold or too hot, right? Because they say that women and men adjust at different temperatures. Yeah. We went over that last year on the podcast. Right. There's a perfect temperature for men, it really cold, and women will have sweaters on the back of their chairs. Do you ever get that where people complain it's too hot or cold in the building or in their offices?
I think that mostly comes to those department managers more than HR, but okay. I have had somebody...
Never gets up to you.
I have had somebody that, really kind of took things to an 11 and really, they would complain about, Charlie's standing behind me opening a piece of candy and I don't like it. And they would always request to move their desk somewhere else.
Okay.
And I was like, if we keep moving this person's desk, they're going to be like the guy in Office Space that ends up in the basement.
With the staple. Yeah. What about an office too noisy or too busy with people on speakerphones? You get complaints about that?
No, because it happens in my office. Oh God! I'm fortunate where
you have a door.
Where I have a door and
Right.
I can shut my door. I think, some people now, have their headphones in, or something, noise canceling headphones or something. But in my office, it's it's notorious. There's one person that when they're not in the office every day because they go to different locations, but when they are in their office, it never fails. And they're like several doors down from me. They're always on their speakerphone of their cell phone, and I can hear the whole conversation.
That's unwritten social rules they're violating.
I'm like, just shut your door.
We always had IT issues. Even when we worked for an IT company, there was always problems with the computers, the printers, and that was a big frustration for people where they wanted to smash. Do you get a lot of IT problems or people coming and complaining about shit not working, or they don't direct that at you, really?
No, they take that to IT.
Right.
But
does it ever get escalated to you?
No, not to the point of HR, but ironically enough, I actually support IT in my company, and I guess people think since I support IT, that means I know how to fix shit too. I don't understand. If our copy machine or printer or whatever goes out in the office, everybody looks at me. I'm like, why are you looking at me? I don't know how to fix this. I'm not the printer expert. But it got to the point where one day I took, opened all the doors and, turned it on, turned it off, and then I just kicked it, and it started working. So I actually called the people in IT, and I said, there's no need to come over here now. It works. What did you do? I said, I kicked it.
You kicked it.
It works.
I've got a question for you. Yeah. This fits right in with the bunch of malarkey. Okay. I worked for a pharmaceutical company, and I had a really nice office, and I had it nicely decorated, and this would be the place where everybody would come in to hang out, and they wanted to just, it was a very welcoming place. I had a candy dish on the desk. Mm-hmm. People would come and take the candy. Now, if someone puts out a candy dish, is it open season for anybody in the company to come take that candy, or is it just if someone comes to the office for a purpose and asks for the candy, or is it, since it's out, it's free game? I saw this came up on, I don't know if a radio station or about a month or two ago, and I related so well to this. What would you say if someone came in and said, Barbara took my candy, and you said, well, where was the candy? And they said, on my desk. Would you say it's open season for that candy? Or
if you put it out, isn't that like...
But what if it's somebody you never talked to in the company, never dealt with, and they just came in and took the candy because they saw it out in the dish?
That's a little
That used to happen to me all the time. People I didn't even know used to come in and put their hand in that candy dish.
That's creepy. Now, I have a leader that I support who their office is pretty welcoming, and there's like a small couch in there and table, and they have a candy dish, but everybody that comes in that office contributes to adding to the candy dish. So everybody takes it, everybody replenishes it.
No, we had this woman, Paula, her name was. She was like the size of Andre the Giant. I'm not kidding. You would hear her rumbling through the office. I never dealt with this woman.
It would be like Jurassic Park with the water.
She would come and just raid my candy dish. And you know what I would do sometimes? I would leave the office when I saw her coming, and I would stand behind cubicles, and we would watch her look around to see if anybody was coming, then go in and raid the candy dish. We used to watch her.
No way.
Yeah.
Would she go in and take a handful?
A whole handful of Reese's peanut butter cups, whatever she could get her hands on.
No. If I go into somebody's candy dish, I'm in there. Like this one particular leader I support, I'll be in there for a meeting, and everyone around the table is just passing around. Right. But it also, it's a pretty big bowl, so there's snacks in there too.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's just open season. What about, now are there still people, do they still get smoke breaks? That always rubbed me the wrong way. It was almost like if you smoked, you got rewarded, because these people were outside all day puffing away every half an hour, and the rest of us were working.
Well, and it's funny because technically where I work, you're not
you're not supposed to smoke.
You could go on the sidewalk because that's considered city property and company property. Now, I had to laugh to myself the other day. I'm like, it's almost 2020. People still smoke, but...
Oh, yeah, everybody.
But it's weird. Actually, people have to go outside. We have to tell people to go outside to vape because they think
that lot of smoke, yeah.
They think they could do that inside.
What?
And not outside. So
that blows off more smoke than a cigarette. Mm-hmm. It's like a train, that thing.
Right. So you have to tell people... That's still considered smoking. You need to go out. But we have to tell
I
people
can't
too.
even imagine somebody would think that that's okay to do inside in an office.
They do it, and I have friends at other companies that say that people have done it too. But you're supposed to, if you go outside to smoke, that's considered a break. And if you're hourly, you're supposed to clock out for that.
Now, we had this woman, we used to call her Puffy.
That was her nickname?
We nicknamed, well, she didn't know that, but we called her Puffy because, you know, people take smoke breaks. She would take work breaks. She would be outside smoking all day and then take a break to go in and do some work every once in a while.
Work breaks.
So what other issues do you have that are common that you hear a lot about or that people complain about? It could be, against the company, the manager, petty shit. What else do you hear on a daily basis, a weekly basis?
Gosh.
Well, did we cover pretty much everything, or do you have anything else?
Let's see. Some of the ones that have come up recently. So let's say you want to go back to school, right?
Right.
And you'll have classes, let's say, Tuesdays and Thursdays in the evening after work. But on Wednesday, you need to leave early because you have whatever, and it only starts at this particular time. So the situation that was escalated up to me recently was this particular person just went ahead and did it and just assumed
it was okay.
That it was okay. And I had to remind the manager, no, if it interferes with business needs, because workplace accommodations are supposed to be for, like, if you have a disability.
Medical stuff.
Yeah. You need to have a footrest or a bigger monitor, or,
Right.
Your schedule's changed because of a medical issue, not because you selected to go to school. When I went through a program, through school, I did that on the weekends. And
I was going to say, can these people come in earlier and make up the hours in the morning, and if they have to leave early, or not a lot of places offer that flex?
Some may, but in this particular instance, they need to be there.
Right. For coverage.
True business hours, because it's, directly affecting something that has to happen. Also, remote work. Some departments, I have some departments that'll allow, let's say, 2 to 3 days of work from home.
Right.
And another department kind of within the same group that won't do work from home at all. So it's like, why do they get work from home, but we don't get work from home?
Well, there's a lot of contradictory studies on working from home, where a lot of studies say productivity goes up, and a lot of studies, how do you see it? Do you have issues with people not getting work done because they're working from home?
I can speak for myself, too, because I'm able to work from home if I need to, and I try not to abuse that benefit. But I feel that I'm able to get more done, like if I'm working on a particular project or, something that has a time deadline.
Because you're not dealing with other people coming in your office. Is that what it is? Less distractions?
Yep, less distractions.
You don't find that being home has more distractions? Like where you're tempted to maybe cook lunch where you normally would have just heated something up, or throw a little laundry in the dryer, or... No, you don't find any distractions like that?
I don't, for me, but I feel I get more done. Even though I have a pretty short commute,
right.
I'm taking out that time. I'm taking out, any time I would have to be, like, presentable.
Just the whole getting ready,
Yeah, I'm taking that out. I can just go, log in and get my work done.
Have you ever gotten anything escalated up to you about something totally egregious going on with somebody who is supposed to be working from home that did something on the clock at home that you can share? Like, in other words, they were out at a restaurant and said they were punched in or something on the clock, went out for a hike or something.
Yeah, supposedly this person was logged in working from home and...
Right.
Supposedly went and interviewed somewhere else that knew that person's manager, and then the person at that company that was interviewing the person busted out that person to their manager. I just think that's just a really poor
I was
taste.
waiting for like a Ferris Bueller story where they were at the ball game and on TV they caught a foul ball or something.
No, nothing that good. If you work in IT and you know that IT, scans what websites you go to because you work in IT.
Right.
Don't go to those websites.
Of course. Even from home.
Well, because from home you're usually still on company. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. They can
company.
monitor what you're doing even at home, right? Because you're using the company machine.
Right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but
I always told people, because I worked in IT companies, the easiest thing for them to see are those internal, and even they're not around anymore, the old AOL and MSN Messenger.
Messenger, yeah.
They used to watch everything you were doing on those and used to know word for word what you were saying on those things. And I always told people, whether it's an internal thing or an extra, don't ever go on Instant Messenger.
Never.
Use your own private email. They really can't monitor your own private email.
We actually, where I work, you can't access your private email from the company computer.
Oh, you can't go on to like Gmail or anything?
You can't go onto that, but the weird part is you can go onto social media sites like Facebook.
Because they probably want to see you doing shit on there.
I don't know. It's bizarre. I'm like, why can't I get to my Gmail, but
Right.
I can get on Facebook?
Yeah, whenever I wanted to be off the grid, I would always use my Hotmail account or something. I never did anything on Messenger because I knew they were watching.
Right. That's why you take it to text message now. If you
Yeah,
know,
or you just do a text message, yeah, on your own private phone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't understand why anybody would use company property for anything when you can. Everybody's carrying a smartphone, a computer in their pocket, right?
People don't think. People do stupid things.
Unless they still got the flip phone going.
I'm sure there are some people out there, though.
Well, Amanda, I appreciate you coming in. It was a very good topic with Labor Day coming up, talking about the office or the workplace, and I really appreciate your input and perspective on things, and hopefully we'll have you back real soon. We got a lot going on in the fall and the winter coming up, so hopefully we'll have you and even your brother. Maybe we'll have it a sibling day, have you and your brother, Philip, both on.
Might as well just bring the whole family.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring mom and dad too. We'll have we'll do a round table. We'll have to switch out this table and have like a round table.
Whole round table of the family.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, folks, for the new listeners, where are we located? We're over on iTunes, which may or may not be around much longer, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, Radio.com, Stitcher, Castbox, YouTube, and if you have an Amazon Echo, just say, Alexa, play the podcast A Bunch of Malarkey. Once again, we'll be off next week for Labor Day, which we just discussed, September 2nd. We'll be back on the 9th. We hope you enjoy the day and hope you get the day off, and hope you don't work too hard. Mutant of the Week, we have the Yo Gator Yahoo versus the Promiscuous Pyromaniac. Poll goes up very early on Tuesday morning and will end on Saturday, so you have 5 days to vote, so be sure to get your vote in. We hope you enjoy your holiday weekend. Amanda, thanks again for coming in, and we'll see you soon. So, folks, if you're out at your job and you think you're getting away with shit, or you're just on vacation for Labor Day, no matter where you are, even if you're at a baseball game stuffing free snacks into your purse because you're a fat fuck, you have to beware. And why is that?
It's
a shit show out there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy your Labor Day week. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody.